I don't want to open a can of worms with this one, so I'm gonna try to keep this one brief. But
there you go.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's it. That's a wrap. Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Just Weebs. I'm here with Shaw, and today we have a very special guest, the host of the Asscast himself, the Ass Master, Kazu.
Yeah, hello. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, man, thank you for coming on. And we thought it'd be great to get Kazu on because recently we watched, or last season, most of us have watched the hit Dress Up Darling, which was spoken a lot about in the community. And, there's a lot of discourse surrounding it, controversial elements that, either people unfairly, accuse it of, or maybe sometimes are fair. But we're here to kind of get the different takes, see where we kind of stand on it. But first off, Shah, Kazu, what's your impression of the show so far? Just overall, like as a rom-com.
So I read the manga the first week the anime came out because I loved the first episode so much because I thought it was like just really well produced. Ended up catching up basically within the same day. And my impression on the anime is I think the anime adapted it it was perfect basically. Like I don't think there was anything that they did bad from the manga. There wasn't like they didn't really leave anything out that would, even though they went about like 40 chapters deep, but from what I just checked, it seemed like they covered everything and gave us more because some of the scenes were even extended longer than what they were in the manga and for the benefit of the anime. So I think just from an adaptation standpoint, it was as good as they could have done.
Okay. What about you, Shah?
Yeah, so I just caught up as of like 15 minutes ago. Really excited about that. And so I kind of like waited it out to see because I like saw a lot of people talking about it, and I think I fell into the trap of kind of like assuming it was just going to be another kind of like seasonal rom-com that was getting hyped up because of the really cute waifu type of show. But the more other people had seen it, the more they're like, no, it's different. There's a lot of personality to it. The couple is cute. The main character is like really charming and like has his own character to him. So I waited until it was done and then I binged it, and I think it was really fun. I think everyone else was right that it really is a really cute, charming show that has some cool, like empowering things to say about like having obscure hobbies and like being true to yourself and like finding people to bond with those hobbies over. And I think Marin and Gojo are super cute. I really love both of them. And yeah, I mean, it's super well produced. It's a lot of fun to watch, and it's just like it's a really good time.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of its standout things about it, right from the beginning. That part about how it sort of like uplifts or tries to defend people and their hobbies. And I'm like, oh, this is nice, it's kind of wholesome. And it does really focus on that apart from the rom-com aspects. But I did enjoy your mini tirade when you were catching up and being angry about the new love interest that they introduced. And then you took it back.
Okay,
slightly.
That was the thing. Like, I didn't know how to express this because, like, when it's like Twitter and like you say something that's just like on your mind and people take it as like you are saying everything about this is bad. And I'm like, no, this is really just like, I saw how she was getting introduced in the episode, and my initial just like impulse is like, I don't want to focus on a new character right now. I want to see Gojo and Marin being cute. And there are so many times when they like introduce a new character and then it takes away from the main couple. And I'm like, there's literally nothing against this character. I haven't even seen her. It's just in this moment, I want my cute couple. And then naturally, of course, she gets introduced, Juju, and she's wonderful. She's great too. She doesn't take away from the main couple. They have a really cute episode with everyone cosplaying together. So I'm like, okay, this is totally fine. This worked out great. It's just in that initial impulse when I'm like, I want my cute rom-com couple. I want to focus on them. I want them to go do cute things, and I don't want anything to take away from that.
Yeah. Like, honestly, I don't blame you. The setup was he like fell on top of her naked. Like, how many times have we seen that?
Yeah.
And I get that. Like in any rom-com, when the outcome is inevitable, like we all know Gojo and Marin are getting together.
Yeah.
Like I get that. It's like seeing another love interest just come into the show, and it's just like, okay, they're just delaying the inevitable process here. And
yeah,
it'll feel pointless, but I think Dress Up Darling did it well because Juju lends a lot of character and a lot of like a different perspective to cosplaying, since the show is also very heavily about, you know, what cosplaying is, how people perceive it, and what people do it for. She provides a lot of, I guess, perspective from that direction. And I will say, I mean, I guess not spoilers, in terms of how she affects the love dynamic so far, like basically what you saw in the show is all that has happened so far.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is I think that's kind of like a good kind of encapsulation of Dress Up Darling in a nutshell. Like, you see the way it's set up and you think something is frustrating, that something frustrating that has happened in other rom-coms will happen. And then what ends up happening is exceeds expectations and is a lot of fun. And I feel like that in a nutshell is kind of how everything has been so far. Like, there's so many different elements that could be so frustrating, because I've seen them in other shows be frustrating. But the way Dressed Up Darling handles them makes them just like really fun to watch. Like, so many different scenes of like Gojo being flustered or potential misconceptions between everyone. Like, even in that same episode, I think it was like he reveals that it was like Juju's younger sister wanted to cosplay as well. And then at the end of the episode, he's kind of like, he's explaining like, oh yeah, she was embarrassed. So like, we went to go like figure it out by ourselves. So like, because she wanted to keep it a secret. And Marin just shows in like this really like cute, funny way that she was like jealous that he got to wear her uniform. She got to wear his uniform and they got to do stuff together. But like, it doesn't turn into like a 3-episode thing that needs to be cleared up. It's just like momentary jealousy. And then it's a joke and we move on. And it was handled like so perfectly.
I'm actually so glad you brought that up, because when I was reading the manga, I tweeted out about the exact same thing.
Yes.
It's like, it was just building up to this thing. It's like, oh shit, she's going to be upset that Juju's younger sister is there, and then probably the next 2 chapters she's going to give him the cold shoulder. It's going to be this annoying thing, and then he's going to have to explain to her how it's not the case. But no, it's just immediately resolved, where Marin is just kind of like childish about it. She's just like, oh, she got to spend time with Gojo and I didn't. Oh, that sucks. And that's basically all that comes out of it. And I was like, I love that. It's like, it was just very anticlimactic in a good way. Like, it didn't need to be a big deal, because we all know that nothing happened more than that.
Yeah, a lot of these shows tend to like rely on miscommunication as a big thing, like to motivate the characters or light a fire under their ass to get them to either confess their feelings or draw this whole thing out, and then that becomes like the meat of it, like the drama. Like, I just finished watching this whole K-drama, and I can't like count how many times characters, like, after being so back and forth for so many episodes, like, no, we can't, even though they're clearly attracted to each other, what made them finally confess their feelings was like someone else came in the picture, made them jealous. That was it. And now suddenly, like, okay, that was the final push they needed. But it happened like repeatedly for almost everyone. I'm like, come on, like, seriously. So, you know, I'm glad that, like you guys said, Dress Up Darling didn't do that. But I also like how authentic it is. Its take on cosplay seems as well. You know, like how it does focus on all those elements, and it still remains a big part of it, as opposed to being something that was sort of like there in the beginning as an excuse to just have these characters interact with each other and then like kind of forget about it. And it's like, no, this is clearly like still like a lot of the focus. And like you said, like Kazu said, like Juju does help to bring in that different perspective, being a more popular cosplayer, and also her dynamic with her sister, which is also very refreshing.
Yeah, and it incorporates a lot of like insecurities in a natural way. Like, you know, Marin is obviously gorgeous. Like, everyone comments on how gorgeous she is. We can tell how gorgeous she is. Like, she's the most detailed character in the show. But it makes sense to have her be like, oh, I feel like I cannot pull off this certain character that I love. And like, you see that with all the characters who are like, oh, I love this character, but I'm insecure because I don't think I can pull him off. And that's like a cool way of saying, like, expressing insecurities without being like, no, I'm ugly. And it's like, you're very obviously not ugly. Like, we don't need to go through this.
Yeah.
But it's like, I mean, really clear.
She's literally a model, so it'd be a little dumb if she went and said that.
Yeah, but you know, lesser shows have done the same. But
exactly.
But it's more about like pinpointing, like, you know, I don't fit the mold of this ideal character, so I can't be it. But then like her younger sister is able to pull it off, and then they get to experience something like together and bond over it. So that was really cool. I also enjoy like how like separate from the, like, it involves the cosplay, but I do enjoy how Marin is clearly the one like taking like the interest in Gojo and like pursuing him, especially in that one episode where like she takes him like clothing shopping and then she's like wearing him, like seeing him wear like the lamest things, and in her head, no matter what he wears, she thinks he's hot.
Yeah,
You guys are sharing my exact same thoughts, because I that's what I love the most, because basically at that moment, I'm gonna keep bringing up the manga, I know, but like,
No, do it.
As long as you don't spoil us, we're good.
But, yeah, everything I'll say, because honestly I forgot the exact like 2 or 3 chapters that come after the manga, or where the anime ends anyways, so, but I do remember the big arc obviously. But basically in the manga, when that train scene happened where she, you know, got flustered and realized her feelings for Gojo, from that point onwards is when I was like, okay, yeah, this manga is fantastic, because the rest of the time it's just her basically just being in love with Gojo for like the littlest things, and it's like it's natural. Like of course she would think he looks adorable in these awful outfits, and of course she would just love spending time with him or seeing him do anything, and then just in her head she's even like doing like baby talk, going like, I love Gojo, and he's so cute and stuff like that. It's like, I don't know, I think it's just super natural and adorable, and I do like that it's the popular, the dream girl basically in this instance being in love with Gojo, because obviously Gojo has like a million reasons to be like in love with Marin, but seeing Marin finding those reasons to love Gojo, because there's a lot, in my opinion, I think that's really nice. Yeah,
and you don't see that dynamic, that like switch dynamic often. You know, it's normally the other way around, or you know, like you never see her like the beautiful girl sort of struggling to kind of like, you know, be around the more like, I guess in his case, you know, the more pure
normal
guy.
Yeah, I've been converted. I'm a Gojo stan. I love him. I think he's so great. It's so funny because like in that one scene where he's like trying on all the clothes, like the guy who's working at the store is like, hey, she's really hot. Like there's no way they're dating. And then like they're like, and then we know her thought process is I love him. And it's like, oh, that's like the real life reaction where everyone's like, but why would she love Gojo? And I think they do a pretty good job of illustrating why she would love Gojo, especially, I think people forget in the first episode, they talk about her going out with her friends, getting her nails done or whatever. And there was some hot guy there who was like, oh, like, it's really lame that you have like an anime keychain. And she got really like offended by it because she was insecure about her hobbies. And then you get the exact opposite with Gojo, who's not only like engaged in her hobbies to help her, but he's like has his own hobbies that he feels strongly about that are even more obscure than anime. Like, you know, if you could find one, I guess making like classic dolls is like next level. So like seeing that, and then the whole progression of how he explains that like saying something is beautiful is like really like meaningful to him. Like he doesn't treat it lightly given the profession that his grandfather has that he wants to pursue. So then when he calls her cosplay beautiful, like that's like a big moment. And that like is obviously a good clicking part. So like I think it's funny that like they pretty much lay it out like why she feels the way she does and his redeeming qualities. And people are like, nah, but why would she like him? It's like pretty basic stuff.
Yeah, they kind of like simplify him and just they kind of see him. And maybe a lot of this is not like people that aren't watching the anime and assuming, kind of combined with the people that are watching it. And they kind of conflate him with like the bland, you know, MC that is kind of average and has no like great qualities, or he's just kind of there. He's like the self-insert, where clearly, you know, he does have a personality and he does have his redeeming qualities. It's just a lot more subtle. It's not like flashy. It's more of he's a very earnest type of character.
Yeah. I think so I think I have like a weird perspective on it because I've been thinking about like how people perceive Dress Up Darling in a way. I think on the surface, I understand why people would call, you know, like just to show like wish fulfillment, Gojo's bland, he's boring. And I mean, and obviously Marin is supposed to be like a dream character. She's a glutton, she's a model, she's a big otaku, she's gorgeous, she's like perfect in a lot of ways. But then I honestly also believe that Gojo in his own way is like a dream boy type of character, because I mean, even though he is an insert in a way, because obviously Marin is the selling point of the show and is like the character you want, you know, to fawn over. Gojo isn't just like a normal dude. He has traditional hobbies, and that's why he looks, that's why he might seem bland. But I mean, he's like, I think he has a very great personality. I think the fact that he has this very niche skill in this very like niche profession is not only one of the big reasons why Marin even takes an interest in him in the first place, but at the same time, it's like, it's not saying like at the beginning of the show, it's like just some average dude who got lucky, like in a lot of rom-coms where like the random popular girl just starts falling in love. The only reason they even start interacting is because he's in the sewing club room, making or about to make clothes. She finds out he's able to make clothes. They start bonding over that because she wants to make cosplay. She wouldn't just start randomly talking to some other dude who happened to be in the sewing club and doesn't know how to sew clothes, because it would just end right there.
Yeah. And I gotta say, like in another show, like, like him knowing how to sew and like make the transition to like sewing her clothes for cosplay is not like a leap. You can believably see him going from, okay, I've done these dolls all my life, I just need to kind of apply these skills a certain way and learn a few more things, and now I can kind of sew and do the cosplay for her. Where in another show they kind of would have possibly had more of that leap, to like, okay, somehow some lame excuse to somehow get him involved with the girl to kind of help her out or whatever. But here there's like a logical progression. Like everything they've kind of laid out for him sort of makes sense. Like even with his love for the what are they called? The Kokeshi dolls? Or what? Well, the dolls that
you're ahead of me. You're ahead of me. I'd be like the dolls.
Well, yeah, the dolls. Because like when he was a boy, like just seeing like they always go back to that scene. He sees the doll on the shelf that his grandfather made, and he just like, he doesn't know why. It's inexplicable. It's more of just, for some reason, he finds it beautiful. And that's really how it is with people liking stuff and having preferences. It's sometimes it's subjective, like someone else might look at it and, appreciate it, but not really think much. And then someone will just be stopped dead in their tracks and be like, I love that for some reason. Yeah. And that's it. And then they kind of like keep reinforcing that in the show, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't understand when people say it's like a massive leap for why she would like him anyways, because like, one, the guy has no prior interest in anime, like manga or otaku culture, and almost immediately just plays the games that she recommends him because she recommended it to him and he wants to understand her hobbies better. And it's just engaging with stuff that she loves. I mean, why wouldn't anybody love somebody that does that for you? And like, and there's a bunch of multiple other things, but it's like he very clearly cares about the things she cares about, and that's like a really good quality in somebody.
Because didn't they also point out before, like she had recommended stuff to friends to like watch or read, and like they never like really did, and then he's like one of the few that like took the time and not even like read a summary, checked it out, but played the whole damn game.
Yeah, she kind of said the whole thing like, I understand if it's like too long, or like she kind of like, laughed it off. She's like, okay, you don't have to play it, and was very surprised to find out that he played the whole entire game, basically. Like he got through both versions, because I think she gave him 2.
Yeah.
And like that was like a very surprising thing to her, and that's a surprising thing to a lot of people, I'd assume, because like you give something to somebody, you wouldn't expect them to actually go and play all of it like immediately.
Yeah, especially just for like a reference photo to make something,
Yeah.
And I think it's also, maybe I'm reading into it too much, but I feel like the whole like both like in universe and like current reception where people are like, well, I just can't see why she would like him, when we came up with like many reasons within like 5 seconds. It kind of reminds me of this like TikTok going around where they're like, Pete Davidson and Jack Harlow are getting all the girls for being funny. Guys, we got to stop going to the gym. We got to like re-strategize. And I feel like that's kind of like evident with this, where they're kind of like, both the people in the show, like her friends and like people watching, expect that someone like Marin would want like a really flashy dude to just like be the hottest guy ever and roll up. But like when you actually like listen to what she values, it's like someone compassionate who's like she can talk with, hang out with, engage in her hobbies, and like also has their own passion. Like it's kind of laying it out right for you, and then people are still kind of like, but why would she like him? And it's like, well, it's like kind of right there in the show. Like
I think they say it later in the manga, this isn't really a spoiler, but like I've always thought that Gojo is an attractive character, like because he's 6'1", I believe.
Yeah, there it is.
180. They cut off the they cut off the last number. He says 1.8, and then I don't know why they don't say the last number because she like cuts him off. So it's 180 plus centimeters, which is around 6 feet.
Yeah.
He's very athletic because he's doing training at home. I believe they say that at some point, but he's a tall, good looking guy. And even later on in the manga, one of her modeling agents just comments on how attractive he is. Like, oh, he's a super handsome guy. All of her friends, basically, the friends become more involved later on. I know they didn't really do anything in the manga or the anime, but they do stuff later on. They all think he's a super sweet and like attractive guy. So he's not even ugly or bland looking. Like he is stated multiple times as being handsome. So that's just one of the things already. It's like he's perceived as a handsome dude by everybody in the show. So it's not even a stretch for why Marin would like him.
And if you think about it, because it's anime and because it's stylized in terms of when it comes to the faces, if they're not having like, some signature hair or like some crazy clothing, it could, you could sort of think, hey, he's plain looking. But then when they say in universe, he's attractive, it's because, if they were to translate that to real life, you'd have the facial features that, you would be able to like actually see him being attractive for.
And yeah, I mean, I guess in a series like Dress Up Darling, because the characters that come later, they have like, I don't know what the people at the school are eating, but they are like all models because they have like fades or like just really like fancy haircuts, piercings, like built jawlines. Like that's basically everybody in Marin's friend group. Like they are all just drop dead gorgeous. So I understand why he might look like plain compared to them, but like I said, he is stated as being handsome, and I always thought he was an attractive guy. Like there's panels where they highlight basically his beauty because like when he's blushing or like he's talking about his passions, like they give him like a soft glow on his face, his eyes sparkle. It's like they clearly want you to think he's a cute dude.
Yeah, I mean, evidence is right there. I mean, people should accept it at just like he's 6 feet tall. Like there you go.
Exactly.
That's it. That's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Like next time someone is like, but why would you, like, he's 6 feet tall, it's Japan, they're like, I feel like the average anime guy height is like 5'8", but even then, I mean, like you explained it well, like he's good looking in universe and like it's pretty easy to see, but it's kind of but I think it's kind of evident that it's just like a lot of like the pitfalls of rom-com anime are being kind of held against Dress Up Darling, and like sometimes I could kind of understand it, but like for the most part I feel like it's kind of escaped a lot of the pitfalls, like some of the ones we talked about where, the couple seems to be going well, and then they add in a new character to like shake things up and try and progress things. Like, kind of avoided that. I think something they do well is like the natural conversation between Gojo and Marin, even like when he's getting really flustered. He's never getting flustered to the point where it's like completely taking away from the scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like one part and then it's like, okay, he moves on, or like the scene moves on. It's never like that's the end all be all.
They always do a thing, which I like. It's like he's getting super flustered or like super embarrassed. Then Marin will either say something really like goofy or do something really goofy that just completely just ends all the flustering right there and leaves him stone faced. And he's like, okay, I'm getting flustered for no reason. And then they just moved on.
I do like how like that has built up where he was getting like flustered before, but just kind of like from normal like reasons, not that he had like particularly feelings for her, but now it's gradually like becoming like he's actually like picking up on those feelings for her. That in that recent the cosplay before the succubus one, he had to like actually set boundaries and be like, I can't see you in that one, sorry, full stop, like no. And she's like, why? I don't get it. And it's like, no, like I really can't.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, that was a good progression, because it's like, she's clearly way more into him, but then he's slowly like also like now taking more notice of her.
It was interesting how they did that, because like obviously at first he was like super attracted to her, and you're like, oh, but like how does she feel? And then like we see a lot more from her perspective where she's like in love with him. And I did have that moment where I'm like, okay, so he's attracted to her, but is he kind of like in love with her? Like how does that feel? And then he was kind of like, would I have let her wear my school uniform? Like, nah, I don't think I could have done that. And then like as you said, it's more of like him thinking about her like specifically as a person beyond just like, oh, she's hot kind of thing.
And and exactly, I think that's what I hate a lot about people that go into like rom-coms. Like some of them I do understand that the they passed a point already that they should be dating by now, and they just haven't. I mean, honestly, like something like Rent a Girlfriend, like Kazi and Chizuru have been together for 2 years now. Like
really,
been friends.
2 years?
Yeah, it's been over 2 years.
Damn. Okay.
Have they been officially together for 2 years? I thought
No,
they just got together.
Like, I mean, like they were hanging out. He's done all this stuff. I mean, mind you, Kazi is a fucking character. But just point being, they've gone through so much. It's like at this point you would expect something more than what's happened, and I mean something finally did happen. But in something like Dress Up Darling, a lot of people think Gojo should just be with Marin already. Like he should just step up, get over his insecurities, and just ask her out on a date. Even though he very clearly thinks that like she doesn't see him that way, and it's not like he's putting himself down, but he's just like no, she probably doesn't see me that way, but that's fine. I just enjoy having her as a friend. And at the same time, Marin also, even though she is very like flirty, I don't think she's made it directly clear that she is in love with Gojo, and that's in part of her own shyness and embarrassment, because she gets very flustered and embarrassed by it. She doesn't do like anything to directly indicate that she wants Gojo to like say or do anything to her, so why would Gojo pick up on that?
Yeah, and actually the show isn't really like dragged down by the fact like where you feel like frustrated by the character and it's like, oh, he just needs to get over his insecurities and just fess up his feelings and like get on with it. It's more of like every episode is sort of its own like thing, and it actually feels, while I was watching, like it just goes so quick. Like you're just having fun like with whatever they're doing, and then the episode's over and you're like, shit, that's it. So it doesn't feel like you're in a rush to see them get together. You're kind of just enjoying this kind of progression.
Yeah, 100%. I think, it was cool. I feel like the beach episode might be one of the best examples of that. I don't know. There's so many good examples, but I feel like the beach episode really nailed this kind of like sereneness between their characters, where they're just kind of like hanging out, talking about things, like making plans, kind of enjoying each other's company, but it's also like goofy and funny. I don't know. I was really hit with just how like they have such a good natural chemistry, and I think I really value that in series where people talking is like the foundation of the series, and that's like slice of life rom-com animes in a nutshell. Like if you don't enjoy them talking and hanging out, like there's not much left to enjoy. And I feel like they just kind of nailed that, where like you could kind of watch them do anything and have a good time.
Yeah, I think Gojo's like blandness, as people will call it, is exactly why the show works so well. So I think if he was any more eccentric than what he is right now, or if he was an otaku, or he was into anime already, like the series wouldn't work. Like I think a big part of why it works is just because of how like polar opposite their dynamics are. I think I saw somebody say, and like put it really well, they said that Gojo is able to like reel her in when she is like being like basically like over the top, like incredibly like just incredibly energetic. Like he's able to like reel that energy back in, and she's also able to like give some energy to him to where he's able to like enjoy things more, or he's able to start like loosening up a bit. Like they complement each other basically.
Yeah, they rub off on each other, but they're still able to at the end of the day remain their own separate people, but like giving each other's like best qualities to each other.
I agree. Because like you couldn't have two Marins in the same show. Like it would just not make sense, and it would not be fun if they were both on that same level. So yeah, I think he works really well. I think it's kind of sad that there are so many like romance protagonists that are intentionally self-inserty, so people kind of mistake like reservedness for intentionally being boring due to like a lack of effort or thought put into it, when like there's very clearly a lot of thought and effort put into his character and why he is the way he is.
It's not like they reserve anything either about him, because a lot of times in other rom-coms like they keep their personal life very like just not explained. Like they just, you don't see their parents. They maybe have like a sibling or like a little sister usually. For some reason they always have a little sister, but like other than that you don't know what goes on like in their home life. You don't know what they do. Usually you see like manga on their shelves, but with Gojo, his grandfather runs a doll shop. I forgot the name of the actual dolls. He runs a doll shop. His parents aren't in the picture because I believe they're dead. He has family members, basically all this, like, what goes on in his personal life, like a lot, because a lot of the show is spent at his home with his grandparents and around his own interests in his personal life. So like I do think, like I said, there's a level of insertion there, but it's like he is hardly a true self-insert. Like you're supposed to insert yourself onto him because you want to fawn over Marin again because she's the object of affection of the series. But at the same time, the insertion ends there because he hardly fulfills any of that for you.
And they actually make it clear from the beginning, like why he has no social life. And that's because he's just been, head first, just dedicated to his craft and learning it and trying to master it the whole time, that he kind of sacrificed or didn't really even pay attention to sort of like, a social life or doing other things. Like there was that episode where, I don't know, what was it? Like someone brought up something to him and like, that's very common. And he had no idea about it. I don't remember what it was, but like he had never experienced it because he never, left his house.
I know exactly what you're talking about, but I forgot what it was about. But yeah, like I
forgot what it was about. Yeah,
it wasn't her because she mentions like he hasn't been to the beach, he hasn't been to
the beach.
Like he just hasn't gone that many places, and you can see that's definitely evident of like just being taken care of by his grandfather. So it's just doll shop rise and grinds kind of thing. But like I think it also like makes sense, like what you guys were saying, like why he doesn't have as many friends, which is it's not just kind of like I suck so I don't have friends.
Yeah, also a big point, also like the series literally opens up on the scene where this little girl says dolls are a girl's thing, I hate you, and then like runs off. And I won't get into that because that's later on in the manga, but I really love how they handle that because to him it's a traumatic experience, and obviously that lends a lot. And I have seen some people say that's a stupid reason for like why he beats himself up about it, because it's just one instance really that they keep calling back to, that of her saying that she hates him. But again, without spoiling, I just love how they handle that traumatic experience for him, because it's like it's a good reason for why he would self-isolate as well, because he's afraid of what people will think of him making dolls. He was a little kid, of course that's going to ingrain in his mind that it's going to develop this massive insecurity that just people are going to think his hobby's stupid, or like wonder why he's doing that. And of course he doesn't want to just go and start talking to people about making dolls because nobody else does that, and he thinks that he has to share that interest with people in order to have friends, basically.
And I definitely think that can be traumatic. That's not flimsy, actually, because if you think about it, he's a kid, he's still in his formative years, and like in his brain, maybe he has the lingering thought in the back of his mind, like, oh, maybe this is kind of for girls, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, whatever. Maybe it's somewhere there. And then someone, maybe a girl that he likes, or maybe, a close friend, I don't know how he felt about her at the time, comes out of nowhere and like reaffirms his worst fear about like what he likes. It's like, ah, shit, like this is not what I wanted to come off as, but I can't help what I like. And so.
And I think it's like the double hit of like, it's an obscure hobby that he's being judged for. And it's like, you're a guy, this is a girl hobby. So it's like, there's so many different levels in which it would be like, okay, no one's going to accept me. And you could tell that girl obviously meant a lot to him. Like I haven't read the manga, but I could just tell like, that's going to be an important person. It's not like just some random kid off the street. So like, the whole idea. She's
coming back. She reeked of I'm coming back.
Yeah,
with a vengeance.
She's definitely coming back.
She's gonna mess shit up.
The final boss will return.
Yeah.
You're still playing with dolls, and then like, it's over. So like, and that's the thing that like, it also is a connection for both of them, because they both have this thing where like they feel like maybe people either judge them harshly for their hobby, or they just kind of tolerate it without really getting involved. And I think that's like a very relatable feeling as like people who aren't really like willing to like kind of either like embrace your hobby or like get involved with you. Like if you do that, that's going to lead to like a stronger connection. So I think that like that line just seems pretty logical. I think it just makes sense.
And here's flipping it on its head. As for Marin, like maybe people also expect her, like a gorgeous looking girl like her who looks like a model, can do all these things, wouldn't be into like anime or stuff like that. Like, why would you be into that hobby? Like, they don't accept, or they'll probably like her, but then kind of like ignore that part about her where she doesn't get to bring it up or embrace it or talk to people about it. And she feels that way. And also, can I take a second to appreciate now that we agree that, Gojo's not as bland, he's believable. I just want to appreciate Marin as a character. She's very positive. Like, she just lets everything slide off her back. She takes things in stride. She's really good.
She's really good. She's a fantastic character. So I mean, when it comes to rom-coms, I'm like the weird guy who loves the protagonist in rom-coms because I'm a very avid rom-com protagonist defender. But I think when it comes to Dress Up Darling,
Self-insert defender.
yeah, I mean, I'd never self-insert in fiction. I actually don't. I just, yeah, I never really care when the character does self-insert. So I tend to see even self-inserts as their own character and try to like look at the character that way. But with Dress Up Darling, I think both Gojo and Marin are just like far and away just like the best characters in that series. And like they're just like, I love them both equally. And yeah, and I think Marin, like I said earlier, I understand how you could just, if you guys know what a manic pixie dream girl is, I understand how on the surface you could call her that because like I said, she's a glutton, she is a model, she's a gyaru, she's into anime and manga, her dad is never home, she has her own her own apartment. It looks like she has everything that, you know, a teenage guy would want basically at the time, or like, you know, or just a young adolescent dude. Like it's like the perfect girl for you. But then at the same time, she has her own insecurities, she has her own outlooks on life, she has her own battles she deals with, and she's very positive about everything. She's just a very positive character, even if she expressed things that do bother her or things that she has struggled with. It's never bringing other people down with her, basically.
Yeah.
I think it's like the level in which you find Marin to be a manic pixie dream girl. I think it's like maybe like a litmus test of your own what's the word I'm thinking of?
Biases?
Not biases, just it's like being grumpy. I'm trying to think I have a word, but
I mean, as soon as I saw Marin, I'm like,
your own negativity or your own. Yeah. Like,
as soon as I saw her, I'm like, she's definitely an ENFP. And ENFPs are usually considered. I'm assuming because usually those are the manic pixie dream girls of anime, aka Pancreas Girl.
Oh my god, no! I'm not sure how Kazu feels about Pancreas. I'm not. Well, I can't get too political.
I've owned the manga for like 2 years and haven't read it. And
okay,
good. Keep it shut.
Yeah, it's just been sitting on the shelf collecting dust this whole time. So
yeah.
I did hear the book was better or the manga was better. I don't know. Never experienced it.
Yeah. What's the website? I already lost it.
The personality.
Yeah, I know nothing about like what the ENFPs and stuff mean.
It's like
it's okay. We don't have to get into this.
It's kind of like zodiac signs.
Yeah, I know it's like zodiac signs for.
But zodiac signs are actually legit. So.
Yeah, that one is it. This is make believe. Yeah. But like essentially ENFP is like that's our like we coincidentally have the same character or personality type, but it's always like the like inspirational, like, you know, get you to go along with my hobby type thing. I don't know.
We're an extroverted character too?
Yeah. Like, the E, so like the E stands for extroverted. The other ones are like I. So like all the like everyone who's like super weird and wants to kill everyone is probably I, like an I and something. And then it's like I forget the other letters. But anyway, yeah, so I could see her being like ENFP, like let me lead everyone into my hobby and get them feeling super.
Yeah, like they're very spontaneous and like stuff like that, and you know, kind of do things on a whim and
look at that ENFP.
Yeah, exactly.
There it is. We called it. Okay, yeah.
I felt it. We
found another good ENFP. They're either good or like the worst of all time. There's no in between.
Yeah. Like and also if it helps Kazu to give you a better picture, F also stands for feeler, so they're more of like a feeling type versus a thinking type. Not saying that ENFPs don't think, you know, it's just like prioritize how they feel. It's about how they feel versus the logic.
Oh yeah. I mean, she absolutely prioritizes her feelings, I think, in situations.
Her excitement.
Yeah.
Yeah. But back to the manic pixie dream girl, even though like she might fall under that like umbrella, like where on the surface you could think, yeah, she's definitely like that. I feel like she averts that trope by, you know, kind of like having that balance of kind of feeling like a real person.
Yeah, I think she topples that like thing in like the first episode. Like it's very clear she is way more than that. Yeah. In just the first episode. Because like I said, I understand if people don't watch the show and they see like all over Twitter just people posting Marin in the bikini episode and it's like Gojo just getting flustered and her like teasing him about it. It's like, okay, yeah, you can probably come away thinking that she is nothing more than that. But if you just sit down and watch the show and see the first episode alone, you'll understand just how, in my opinion, how much depth there is to Marin as a character.
And
Yeah.
typically you wouldn't get a manic pixie dream girl's perspective, like where you see
Yeah.
them being the ones being in love with the guy and sort of being flustered and like, you know, kind of having to figure it out and all that stuff. So,
And that's what I love like most about the series. It's just like it's Marin falling in love with Gojo. Like it's showing like I think it's intentional. Like we have all the reasons in the world to like Marin and think she is a desirable person. And the manga doesn't spend that time trying to keep building up like, oh, you should love Marin. It's spending the time showing you why Gojo would be desirable to Marin, and then she keeps like seeing those reasons or like just reaffirming those reasons and falling more in love with him. Because like, yeah, we don't need to see Marin keep being like this perfect person, even though they do that anyways. They spend all that time building up Gojo, and which is really beneficial, I think, for their dynamic.
without spoilers, does the manga stay on the same trajectory? Like, is there any like big changes to the status quo, or does it kind of keep like kind of giving us what we're getting now?
I wouldn't say there's a substantial change to the status quo. I mean, okay, so last chapter there was it could lead to a change in the status quo, basically. That last chapter left off on something where it's like, oh, okay, something might happen. But other than that, it's mostly just been building up, like slowly more and more they're realizing their feelings, basically. Like there is progression with it. It's not just staying like stagnant. Like there is progression between their feelings for one another. Obviously Marin is still fawning over him more and more, but then they do pull it back a bit and make Marin like sit there and then think about like what Gojo really means to him, how she should approach if a relationship ever comes between them and things like that. So like she does actually start thinking about it later on, like rather than just like not that she's like just has no thought process going into it, but yeah, like there basically is a whole entire chapter of like somebody says something to her and then she's like, oh, so what does Gojo like truly mean to me, and how does he feel about this, and blah blah blah.
Okay, so it seems like they're definitely putting in the work and laying the foundation really well, so that's exciting to hear.
Give us the tea, make it happen.
Yes.
Summoning progression.
Is there enough content for a season 2 actually, do you think? Or do you think it needs to build up a bit more?
It's most certainly going to get a season 2, I think. But considering, like I just checked, the anime ends at chapter 39, and we're on chapter 74. If they were to adapt the same amount of chapters, they would need 4 more. Yeah, 4 more chapters. But I think they could probably just slow down the process a bit, because the next like 2 or 3 arcs that happen basically like can basically take a whole season.
Okay.
In my opinion, like I think like the first chapter alone of like what comes, actually I do remember what comes right after this. There is not really spoiler because I don't think they affect a lot of dynamic as Juju, but there's another character that becomes reoccurring, who I love, and their dynamic that they add to the series I think will take up a lot of like the second season, because what you were talking about earlier, I think what I do love and realize what I love about My Dress Up Darling is how much it tackles fears, and this character is like the embodiment of that.
That's exciting. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Definitely looking forward to waiting for the anime to catch up and see that.
Maybe I'll take the plunge. I will read the manga.
Fight the manga. I don't know. These days I'm like, I might as well take the plunge.
Like, I think it's fine to wait for both, like with Kaguya. I always tell people, I'm like, I love the manga, but I think the anime, for what it's adapted, the chapters has elevated beyond past the manga.
Yeah, I have heard that.
I think it's worth waiting. Even Dress Up Darling, like I said, I love both because the artwork in the manga is fantastic, but there's a lot of scenes that just elevated it, that if you wait for the anime to come out, that's like perfectly fine, I think, because it was fantastic.
Yeah, I heard they made the Love Hotel scene more steamy in the anime.
Yeah, no, they did that scene more steamy. I'd say the Juju less steamy because for whatever reason in the manga, that was the only uncensored part. Like she had like full on nipples and everything gone. So they pulled that one back a bit, which is a shame. But everything else, they went overboard. Like the second episode, that was just basically purely just the anime just going like all in on the
Going
fan
in.
service.
Got it. Yeah. Has there been anything else in terms of the dress up darling discourse that has either, bugged you guys, kind of bothered you, or even stuff that you agree with, like, was this sort of like the main thing that's kind of been buzzing regarding dress up darling that you've seen?
I guess there's the fan service aspect. People are always kind of like, is it like too much fan service? Is it okay? I wasn't sure going into it, but I am going to give it the stamp of okay fan service, because I think like 99% of the time it kind of makes sense in context. It doesn't feel too like, because you got like fan service where it seems kind of like logical given the events that are happening, or it's like portraying a character's perspective, like especially whenever we have like Gojo is getting flustered over taking her measurements. That is like a very fair.
Yeah, that made sense.
That makes sense. I think there was like one scene I saw where she is like reaching over like the laundry, like her like washer or dryer, and they have like a panty shot, and like he's not even in the room. I think at those times sometimes you're like, maybe it's a bit much, but I feel like like 99% of the time it's fine, and I never feel like it's too. It never feels, what's the word I'm thinking? Like, I guess people like say like
overindulgent.
I was thinking exploitive, where it feels like it's like against the character's kind of like, it's making the character feel uncomfortable. That's like, you see those scenes where it's like, okay, they're uncomfortable with how much skin they're showing or something. Like, I guess not to go to the usual suspects, but it's like an SAO kind of scene where it's like a character's in a compromising position and like they're feeling uncomfortable, but like they're still showing a lot of skin against their will, like something like that. It never gets like on that level. I think it's like pretty harmless, all things considered.
Yeah, like it indulges a little, but it's not overindulgent. Yeah.
I mean, they kind of did that with Juju, but I think that was like fine. I mean, it was just like a misunderstanding thing that they quickly blow over. But I'm glad you brought up the ecchi thing. I actually don't know why I hadn't touched on that. So I mean, or the fan service, but I am a big ecchi fan. I read a lot of, that's like mostly what I read is like supernatural ecchi stuff. So like To Love Ru Ayakashi. So I'm particularly like okay with fan service anytime like it comes in, but I can acknowledge when it's like overindulgent or like distracting, like something like Fire Force, Tamaki, just randomly having fire. Like I think for the most part of fan service is fine, but then you have a big super serious scene that shouldn't have any fan service, and all of a sudden she's in a compromising position, just takes away from everything, and it's obviously like overindulgent. I think in Dress Up Darling, I think it was perfectly okay, and in fact I think fan service is a big crux of the series, because it's not just a regular visual novel she's interested in, it's a hentai visual novel. It's an eroge. Like it's not just that, like she very clearly has a particular interest in erotic stuff. It's like, so of course the series would be erotic in nature.
Which is interesting how they do that too, because like she is interested in it, but like I guess like for the story and the character designs, like she never like goes into the actual gratuitous content and like specify like she's into that part. But maybe she is. I don't know. But
I actually like that they took that approach with her, because I'm also I do like the fan service in the series I read, but I'm also the one weirdo that like gets hyped over the fights and the story, or looks at the character, like in Mata Sehi no Slave. That series is just filled to the brim with fan service. But my favorite aspect is like the story and the fights. So I'm like that one weirdo. I'm like Marin, so I like related to her a bunch, because she was hardly like talking about the characters having their sex scenes or the deed, like doing the deed, or showing off.
She seems so like innocent and pure about it, when it's like, but it's this thing, it's this filthy thing. It's like, but the scenes and the storyline.
And I think it also could. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No.
I was just gonna say, I think it also lends credence and would explain why she is like. I think she's aware of like the sexual nature of it or whatever, because like she's okay with showing skin to Gojo. Like she doesn't see it like in the sexual way. I think like during like the second episode, she was mostly just teasing him about it, because she's like, oh, I don't care if you see me in my bikini. Stuff like that. And that's because her hobbies just revolve around this eroge and everything. It's just natural to her. This isn't anything that's particularly weird or like just
Yes.
sexual in nature to her.
Yeah. And I think it could also add to like her isolation a bit when it comes to like, oh, I really like this like very otaku thing. Like it's not just like, oh hey, I like Naruto. It's like, you know, it's like I like this like eroge ecchi hentai game. And none of my friends will play it, understandably. But then when someone does play it, it's like, oh wow, like you actually took interest in it, and like for the same reasons I did. That's really cool. So like, I think that also totally makes sense. It's like, you know, I don't know. I guess like I can totally get if other people are kind of like bothered by the fan service if they just want like kind of like wholesome rom-com antics. But I think it also like makes sense in the context of the series. So
yeah. And it also adds to, you know, Marin's sort of like attractiveness and, you know, like it
Gojo's
kind of
feelings.
Yeah. And how like he's not comfortable around women in that way. And so like he's in the room, like just trying to adjust, you know, her outfit and she's just being all comfortable, like flaunting it. And it's like you kind of are in his shoes now, kind of feeling like it's putting you in his shoes, being like feeling awkward. Yeah. Plus, I feel like I won't speak for all cosplayers, but cosplayers I've known in the past where like we went to cons and we were like sharing a room, like they wouldn't care. They just needed to change outfits. So in the middle of the room, they would just start changing. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, we just need to get to our next outfit. We got to go. Okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think they just view it in a different way, which is like totally fine. Like, really, I think they were just showing just how, you know, comfortable and confident Marin is in her own skin and just around other people. And like you said, it's just putting us in the shoes of Gojo in that moment. It's like, would you feel comfortable in the position he's in right now?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, the argument I've heard for that is like, I saw somewhere online, someone say like, well, if Gojo was, and this goes back to the bland MC thing or like that take, where if Gojo was like any more assertive or whatever, like, or more, you know, kind of comfortable with his libido or whatever, they would already probably be smashing. And like, and like for the story progression, then that you wouldn't have a story, it would have ended at episode 1. So
I don't
they can't
understand
do
when people
that.
say that. I hate when
And
people
that's
say
the thing
that.
where it's like, okay, let's take a step back and think of, has any like main character in anime done that? Like, because then we get to the thing where like, it's kind of a cultural thing where like, I mean, I'm not going to say like everyone in Japan is like shy like Gojo, but like it's definitely like an anime manga thing where like they're not going to go and make bold romantic moves unless it's kind of like a standout like part of the series. Like, and I'm not saying that's like better or worse, but like it's just not as forward in general. Like, I don't think like if Gojo was slightly more forward, he would be making moves.
Well, and I think the context just surrounding it is super important. It's like he went from being, you know, just this shut in. He had no friends to begin with. He did nothing but make dolls in his room all day. To all of a sudden, there is a girl in his room.
Yeah.
She is half naked.
Yeah.
And now, and it is being like super just in your face. Like it's just a total 180 from his life before. Why would Gojo be assertive in the situation? Yeah. And also like, it doesn't really bother people that he's not, you know, gonna smash her in this instance because I think Gojo sees her as more than that. Obviously he's attracted to her, but like I don't think that makes him a coward for not wanting to smash her in that moment because like I don't think anybody in that situation would just be like immediately comfortable with it. Like,
that's like, we're not talking about like Euphoria. Like that's like a Euphoria move. We're not talking about Euphoria.
Like I said, he's a real character. Like I get it. She's a super attractive girl, but like at the same time, he is a super isolated, shut-in guy. Of course, he's not going to know how to handle the situation.
Yeah. Kazu, I know you kind of addressed this a little bit, but like in general, while we have you on, like what is your whole view on the fan service in anime and like kind of like people kind of arguing that it shouldn't be in it, you know, like, or remove it or lessen it, because it is prominent like in a lot of anime, you know, even in small doses. What do you think of it? I know you're a fan, but just the argument.
I usually always have like arguments on this a lot, honestly. I think so. I can understand when fan service bothers somebody when it's like introduced later on or wasn't present to begin with from the beginning of a series. So like, let's say like 100 chapters in, all of a sudden fan service comes out of nowhere and now it's taking up a lot of precious screen time. Or like there's a manga that I read. It's horrible. I dropped it. It's got like 10 chapters in. There was fan service all throughout. Basically, like there was like panty shots and the characters had very like oversized stuff, like boobs. But they try to take their story very seriously. And then at the 10th chapter, it
went off the rails.
It automatically turned into I'm assuming this manga was selling poorly, but it turned into a yuri hentai, like where now they were fully naked. Just 3 chapters in a row, they were having, they were doing the deed in the shower. And that's when I was like, okay. I was like, all right, I'm not enjoying this because this is just completely just out of left field, just out of nowhere. And it's just not good. It lends nothing to the series. But I think in other series, I think fan service a lot of the time is heavily ingrained into like the anime. And while it doesn't always have to add something, I don't think it always takes away from the series, if that makes any sense. Definitely. Like a lot of times it doesn't bother me when it's happening because it's like, it happens and then we move on, or it happens during a fight, then we move on. And it's been there established from the beginning. So I know what to expect during these moments anyways. Like Monogatari, fan service is a big part of the show. It's going to happen all the time. And I always see people complain about it. Like when they're like halfway through second season, it's like, okay, it's like, you have to know what you're getting into at this point.
Yeah.
So, and it's like, it's fine to, critique it, but I do see people like complaining about it over and over. And it's just like, you know, what's going to happen. I think you got to either accept it or just, or just ignore it really, because it's going to happen in any series.
I agree with you on that. I think that's a case where, I think because I've seen it a lot, people are like, don't worry, there's so much less fan service in second season. And then they get to second season and then there's a decent amount of fan service and they're like, wait a minute. So I think it's a combination.
I don't know how people say that.
Well, no. It's like there's less in comparison to Nisei, but there's still fan service.
So I think, you're definitely right. It's just a weird case where people also try and like be like, no, it's not happening. It's like, no, it's still happening.
It's going down. It's Monogatari.
It's
Come on.
Because like, as you said, it's like, okay, we know what to expect.
I don't want to open a can of worms with this one. So I'm going to try to keep this one brief, but because sometimes the argument I get what you're saying in terms of fan service. Like obviously, like if it doesn't detract from the story and there still is a story, then that's the part that you want to enjoy, and fan service can just be like a bonus if you enjoy it, and if not, just ignore it. But a lot of times people also get like where it strikes a nerve is like, for example, like I think with Dress Up Darling, like they're in high school. That they're 16 or they're 17, and then that's like, okay.
You just saw a tweet saw the tweet that's like, there's no reason to sexualize anyone under the age of 18, didn't you? I saw
it like a couple hours ago.
It's like someone posted that. It's like, what anime opinions will get you canceled? And everyone's like, please shut the fuck up. So it's like, let's bring it back.
I'm glad I didn't see that tweet. So I also have opinions on that. I think
if it's too long of an opinion, we could save it for another time.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just keep it brief because it's fine. It just has to be like cool can of worms. I think for the most part, it's fine. Like I don't think people are, because we are saying Marin and Gojo are both hot, attractive characters. I don't think people look at them in the context of the show, if that makes any sense, because you don't look at them and think, wow, that's a hot 16-year-old. I mean, mind you, also Marin doesn't even have a confirmed age. I mean, we know she's in high school, obviously, but I think the mangaka did that intentionally. She doesn't have a confirmed age. You don't know if she's 15 or 16 or somehow a 19-year-old in high school. They left that up in the air. So a lot of the times it's really just, in my opinion, I think it's just a number on a page that can change in an instant. So I think stressing over that is just, a little pointless in my opinion, because like 99% of people that watch anime don't look at these characters and are attracted to them for their age or just look at them. I just look at anime characters as anime characters, really. It's like if I see an attractive one, I'm like, okay, it's a cute character. It doesn't matter if they're 4,000 years old. It doesn't matter to me if they are like Ogi and have existed, not that long.
That's a great way of putting it. I think that's a nice way of putting it, because I would probably just go on like a rant of like, it's like, as you said, like no one's looking at this as like, wow, the 16-year-old character, that's where it's at. It's like a lot of times it's like how they're drawn and how they're like supposed to be presented. And then I think a good point that someone brings up is like, okay, so what about the people who are under 18? Like, do people under the age of 18 never have any, like, are they never attracted to someone their own age or character their own age? Like, do they never feel sexual attraction? And it's like, I think it's easy for a lot of people online to forget, especially like, you know, I know all of us are over 18, but like, you know, people under the age of 18 are watching anime too, and they have feelings about how attractive anime characters are. So it's like, are you never going to show anyone who's attractive their age, or is it like only people who are 18 and above are allowed to look attractive?
And I think people very, very commonly forget that the demographics for most of these series are teenage boys and teenage girls.
Yeah.
So putting it in a high school setting makes perfect sense. Like, you're expecting people in high school to be reading this so they can relate.
Yeah.
So like, just because a lot of adults in the West, because I guess I won't say for whatever reason, like Dress Up Darling is targeted towards, I'd say 14, 15 year olds in Japan. Over here, it's listed, I think, as like 17 and up, and it's always in plastic wrap in the stores and everything. The demographics obviously shift between, I guess, where the between Japan and the West, basically. But like in Japan, it is geared towards high school and teenage boys. Obviously, that's going to be that's what the series is going to be about.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and it's definitely weirder too when you grew up with an anime and like now you're much older, but the characters are still the same age. But then that's a different discussion. Anyways, we'll save the rest of this for the fan service pod, you know, when we'll bring you on for that. Very last question. I think we'll end it off on this. Do you guys think, like, after everything we talked about, like, Dress Up Darling is like a standout, like, for a rom-com? It's not just the hype of the season that's just sort of hyping it up and people are going to forget about it. Like, for rom-coms that you've seen, like, it does definitely stand out? Or can you think of like other examples of where they've done what it does better, or, you know, stuff like that?
I think it's definitely a standout. I was hoping it wasn't just my hype when I read it, because it's like already one of my favorite romances in general. I'd say like top 5 at the very least. I don't know how I haven't ranked it in my mind. But it is very standout from a lot of the rom-coms I have read and watched in the past, because as we were mentioning throughout this whole pod, it will bring up a trope or a very common thing that happens in an anime, and then just immediately either handle it in an anticlimactic way or turn it on its head. Like, a misconception happens and they resolve it immediately. It's things like that. I think it's very standout, and it's one of my favorite. I think it does a lot of things really well.
All right.
Yeah.
What about you, Shah?
I agree. I was thinking about it, and I was so I think, like, currently, if I had to pick one, I'd say my top rom-com is like Kaguya. Boring answer, but whatever.
Kaguya is amazing. So
I love Kaguya. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not sorry, actually. So I love Kaguya. I think that's like one of the best ones. I'd say this is like a bit below that, but not like really below it. I'd definitely say one of my favorites, because you know, everything we talked about, it's fun to watch. I'm invested in seeing what happens. I think that's a big thing. Like, sometimes I'll see a rom-com and I'll be like, okay, I really don't care about what happens next. This one, I really care about what happens. I want to see what happens to both of them as individual characters and a couple. So I'm interested. I have a good time. I think it can be really funny, and there are a lot of relatable parts that make it really charming. So, you know, sometimes you think like rom-coms are simple, they have a formula, like how can you screw it up? But I think it's also kind of like really tough to do them well. So, you know, I'm invested. I think it's gonna be more than a seasonal flash in the pan, but I do think the thing that it will rest on will be getting a season 2, like getting more of it. I think, you know, because as of now, it's like, okay, we saw this, but then it leaves me wondering, okay, but what's next? And I think that's what's going to differentiate it between being a good rom-com and potentially one of the best rom-coms.
Yeah. And I do definitely think with how it left off, you know, you could see it as an ending and like not get more of it, but you know, because it has that very slice of life feel where it could just kind of keep going in your head. But I would like to see more of it whenever it does come back. But yeah, that's about all we got for this episode. Thank you for coming on, Kazu.
Yeah, thank you.
And as always, thanks for being with us, Shah.
Oh, thank you.
And besides that, guys, if you like the episode, let us know in the comments, like the actual video, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, because after all, what do we know? We're just weebs.
But also, since we're just weebs, we have to ask where people can find Kazu and the Askcast.
I totally forgot that part. Thank you. You want me to redo that the whole thing?
We are just weebs asking where to find other just weebs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm a famous Twitter e-celebrity on Twitter.com. It's at Kikazu, KIIKAZUU. You can see me just either talking about Yudu Camp or arguing with people very passionately about rom-com or other things. And we also have the Anime Safe Space podcast. It's on any audio listening platform you find, and YouTube, or we call it the Askcast. Just me and my friends.
Yeah, check them out. I like your podcast a lot.
Thank you. I listen to your guys' sometimes. It was it's interesting.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
So anyways, check out Kazu, check out his podcast, and we'd love to have him on as a guest in the future. Hopefully for that fan service pod. We'll see. We'll see if that gets us demonetized.
I'd love to be on that one.
Yeah. Get your expertise. But thank you for all your takes. And like I said, after all, we don't know anything because we're just weebs.